Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Forge of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uli, and this is episode 201 of the Forge of Freedom. Today's episode comes at a moment when the world is once again on the precipice of another expanding war. As many of you know, the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes against Iran over a month ago now on February 28th. 2026, beginning a conflict that has already escalated across the region with missile attacks, drone strikes, growing casualties, and the shutdown of a major oil and gas thoroughfare. In just the first days of the war, thousands of targets were reportedly struck. The Iranian leadership was decapitated, and retaliation spread across the Middle East against American bases and allies. This episode is not about the daily battlefield updates that you can get from other news sources and podcasts. It is about something deeper, the ideas that make such wars possible. More than a century ago, Ludwig von Mises, I always say that incorrectly, Ludwig von Mises warned that interventionism abroad and the expansion of state power at home are inseparable. War, he explained, is not simply a foreign policy decision. It is the ultimate expression of centralized political power. And Murray Rothbard later argued that war is the health of the state, the moment when governments demand obedience, suppress dissent, and mobilize the wealth and lives of their citizens for purposes that few individuals would ever voluntarily choose. When we examine the modern warfare state through that lens, uncomfortable questions emerge. Why do people who claim to believe in limited government so often support the most powerful and dangerous arm of the government, the military? Why are the constitutional restraints on war the first principles to be abandoned? And why do conflicts that are sold as short, defensive operations so often expand into open-ended commitments costing trillions of dollars and countless lives? To explore those contradictions, I've adapted a framework originally developed by Laurence Vance in what he called the conservative drug war creed. In today's episode, I'm going to apply that same framework to foreign policy. What I've created here in that framework is what I call the conservative war creed, a list of contradictions that reveal how easy it is for political tribes to abandon their own principles when war becomes the subject. As I said, this is adapted from the Conservative Drug War Creed by Laurence Vance. I'll link to that, of course, in the show notes. And in that piece, Vance exposes the contradictions between the principles many conservatives claim to hold: limited government, constitutional fidelity, individual liberty, and their support for the drug war. The same contradictions appear in another area where many conservatives enthusiastically support expansive government power: the United States' persistent propensity to wage war abroad. With that inspiration in mind, what follows is an adapted creed highlighting the tension between professed conservative principles and support for interventionist foreign policy. Although conservatives claim to believe in certain principles that libertarians would likewise hold, as I mentioned earlier, constitutional government, limited power, fiscal restraint, sort of federalism, individual liberty, free markets, etc., their enthusiasm for military intervention suggests that these principles somehow disappear when the subject turns to war. Here, then, is the conservative war creed. I believe in the Constitution, but I also believe in wars Congress never declared. I believe in limited government, but I support a Pentagon budget larger than the next 10 nations combined. I believe in federalism, but not when it comes to the president deploying troops anywhere on earth. I believe in fiscal conservatism, but I have no problem spending trillions on wars and nation-building projects halfway around the world. I believe in low taxes, but I'm willing to finance endless wars through deficits and inflation. I believe in smaller government, but I support a national security apparatus that operates in over 150 countries. I believe in free markets, but not when it comes to the military industrial complex. I believe in capitalism, but I support massive subsidies and no bid contracts for defense contractors. I believe in free enterprise, but not if it competes with Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, or Boeing. I believe in free trade, but I support sanctions and blockades that cripple foreign economies. I believe in national sovereignty, but not for countries whose leaders Washington disapproves of. I believe in individual liberty, but I support the Patriot Act and the surveillance of Americans in the name of national security. I believe in the 14th Amendment, but I think the government should intercept communications anywhere in the world if it claims terrorism is involved. I believe in personal privacy, but not if the NSA needs to monitor Americans communicating with foreigners. I believe in the First Amendment, but I grow suspicious of anyone who criticizes American wars. I believe Americans are basically law-abiding, but I think they should be monitored if they oppose foreign wars too loudly. I believe in the sanctity of life, but I accept collateral damage when foreign civilians are killed by American bombs. I believe in the right to life, but once you are old enough to deploy, you become expendable. I believe in personal responsibility, but I think the American taxpayer should police the entire world. I believe in family values, but endless deployments that tear families apart are simply the cost of freedom. I believe in the right to bear arms, but I want to disarm any nation that refuses to follow American foreign policy. I believe a man's home is his castle, but foreign homes can be destroyed if they are labeled strategic targets. I believe in property rights, but not for foreign civilians whose homes are flattened by drone strikes. I believe in the rule of law, but drone strikes without charges, trials, or accountability are acceptable. I believe in state sovereignty for America, but not for any country that resists American influence. I believe in democracy, but I support coups against democratically elected leaders who oppose U.S. policy. I believe in democracy, but installing friendly dictators is sometimes necessary. I believe the government should not engage in social engineering at home, but nation building abroad is different. I believe diplomacy is weakness, but decades of war somehow never prove it wrong. I believe in American exceptionalism, but I think America should behave exactly like the empires we once rebelled against. I believe in borders, but I act as if America's borders extend to every conflict on Earth. I believe in fewer federal agencies, but I wouldn't abolish a single one of the intelligence agencies. I believe in shrinking the federal bureaucracy, but not at the Pentagon, the CIA, or the NSA. I believe in a smaller federal budget, but not when it comes to the Department of War. I believe that government wastes money on domestic programs, but I accept whatever budget the Pentagon requests. I believe in fiscal accountability, but I still support the Pentagon even though it has failed 8 consecutive financial audits to the tune of trillions of dollars in untraceable assets and endless failed accounting. I believe the government should eliminate programs that fail, but I support wars that fail for decades. I believe in accountability in government, but military failures should remain classified. I believe in the rights of journalists, but not the ones who expose war crimes. I believe the government should not criminalize vice, but it should bomb foreign nations to enforce American values. I believe the government should not regulate the lives of Americans, but it should regulate the political futures of entire countries. I believe in private charity, but bombing a country and sending aid afterward seems more efficient. I believe in peace through strength, but strength apparently requires perpetual war. I believe America should mind its own business, but its business includes every geopolitical conflict on Earth. I believe in the wisdom of the founders, but I ignore their warnings against foreign entanglements. I believe in the American Revolution, but I support policies that resemble empire. I believe in liberty, but not the liberty of other nations to choose governments Washington dislikes. I believe in freedom, but not a world where Americans can live without the burden of a bloated government, trillions of dollars in debt. I believe in limited executive power, but not when it comes to waging war. I believe in a republic, but I support maintaining a global empire without bothering to get congressional declaration of war from the representatives of the people. This is the conservative war creed. If there's one lesson that runs through the works of Mises and Rothbard, it is this: war and liberty cannot long coexist. War requires centralization of power. War requires secrecy. War requires propaganda. War requires taxation, debt, and inflation. And war requires young men and women to fight and die in conflicts they did not choose. The founders of the American Republic understood this danger well. They believed the greatest threat to liberty was not merely domestic tyranny, but the transformation of a republic into an empire. Yet over time, the United States has drifted further and further into a posture of permanent global intervention, maintaining hundreds of bases around the world, fighting conflicts in regions most Americans could not find on a map, and accumulating a national debt that future generations will inherit. The war in Iran may prove to be another chapter in that long story, or it may become something larger. History suggests that wars rarely stay confined to the goals announced at the beginning, whatever those are. They expand, they escalate, they entangle nations in consequences no planner could predict. The question that remains, the question Mises and Rothbard both asked in different ways, is simple. Can a society that claims to value liberty continue to support a permanent state of war? That's something worth thinking about, and I hope more people consider that the next time you're in the voting booth, the next time you're talking to a friend or family member about war, the next time you're listening to propaganda on a news media outlet. Till next time, stay curious, remember the principles that brought about the founding of America, and remember that freedom does not come from the top down. It's forged by the action of individuals like you. You are the forge of freedom.